Hello, hello, hello. It is Sunday night. Let me get myself in the right position. I haven't actually done that yet. Good evening. It is time for another live stream. And tonight we're going to be talking about some stuff, some nonsense as Bruce, or nonsen as Bruce has picked up on. So good evening, everyone. Hello in the chat. Hello, Bruce. Nice to see you. Hello, Mark. Can someone tell me if the stream is working? Anyone except Mark, because I don't believe him. The XLR looks good, so we're hoping we're all good. Good evening, Type. Hope you are safe and well. Big A, Brutus, the Snapshot Drones. Hello, hello, hello. So, the subject of tonight's live stream, well, there's a bit to talk about. We have the battle. Oh, we're being beeped. A battery's finishing charging. We have the battle of the digital FPV systems. We have DJI on the left and we have Byte on the right. I am finally up and running with both systems as they should be. Two completely new builds from scratch, two completely new setups. I spent the last day or so tuning everything, making sure it's right. Sorry, there's batteries finishing charging. And we're going to talk a bit about this today because there's some interesting stuff and it's not all working as it should be. Nothing to do with the digital systems. Got a bit of a strange fault on the Byte one, which could be my fault. Not sure. I haven't dug into it enough yet to have a look. We might even do that in this stream. We're also going to talk about a battery holder for the FPV goggles version 2 because I have made my own. And for those who will remember, let me just find it. Where has it disappeared to? There should be one on the desk. Here it is. We talked about this in a live stream and I was going to send this out to some people and I haven't done it and I owe you an apology. However, I've been using this one, which is a downloadable STL, quite a bit. And I have found quite a flaw with it, and that is that it just keeps falling off. So I have designed my own one. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to get a few of them sent out rather than this one. And I'm even printing the final version of it now. I'm not sure if it'll be finished before the end of this live stream. Let's have a look how long's left. Oh, it might. It might. But I have a pre-release. We have a beta version that we can show you as well. So we can talk about that. We're going to talk about this DJI air unit thing, which is my air units burning out. And I want to talk a little bit about this and why and what I'm going to do about it and some stuff around that as well. And as always, guys, I'm going to answer your questions. So if you have any questions, as always, please do put them in the comments of the live stream. Please do give us a shout out if there's anything you'd like to know, if there's anything you'd like to see or hear. I'll try to answer it as quickly as I possibly can. Now, just to get the inevitable shilling out the way, if you'd like to support the channel, please do consider hitting the subscribe button. If you're new here, we do answer super chats as well for those who want to support the channel, and all of the usual links and crap is in there. So to catch up on the chat, how is everybody? I hope you are. Good evening, David. Hope you are safe and well as Ghost and Failsafe. Chris Higgins, hello my friend. Gary Higgins, hello my friend. BB Junkie, good evening. Snapshot Drone. Rob Rotherham, good evening. Try All FPV, hello. I'm fine, mate. What's up? It's all good. It's been a busy day. So in a minute, we're going to get onto the conversation of these two systems because I'm going to be doing a video on this, but I'm also going to, as always, with you lovely people who come on the live stream, we're going to talk about this live as well. And I'm going to try and address that battle of the digital HD because the battle has really begun now. And whilst this system, which is the Byte system, has been out for over 12 months, it is only now it is really starting to take hold in the sense of, okay, Fat Shark reduced the price of the goggles module to $99 last week, and we'll talk a bit about that as well, and that's going to drag a lot more people into this. I've been flying it today with the Scout HDs, which I really like. I do like these goggles. Not as much as I like these ones. And I don't mean systems, I just mean goggles. And I'll explain why as well. But we're going to see a lot more buzz around this system. So I do want to talk around some of the nonsense, the good, the bad. I'm going to talk about Chris Ross's video. If you haven't seen Chris's video, please do check it out. I was actually going to do a video about this same thing at the same time. When I heard Chris was doing it, there was no point, and I've had a few messages back and forth with Chris, and I've just let him go on with it because he's done a much better job than I would have ever done. But we really are at the beginnings of a bit of a battle here that we haven't had until now. And whilst when we had Byte Frost release originally, it felt very rushed, I have to say, having put 5 packs through this brand new build today, I think it's interesting. It's real interesting times indeed. And it's not all going to be about power, because today, I'm not going to put distances on it, but at 200 milliwatts, I've had no issues at all on this. But that isn't to say it's perfect. So, really, it's to talk first of all about this reduction in cost. And if you didn't see it, I put a video up earlier in the week that Byte had reduced, or Fat Shark I should say, had reduced the price of the module. So this one, just grab it, the goggles module, to $99. Now this caused a bit of a stir, to say the least. I put a video out on it. A lot of people started questioning, is this end of life? Is this suddenly the end? Are they selling it off? Are they dumping stock? The reality is, it was simply a move by Fat Shark, Byte, to try and grab market share whilst DJI are up against the ropes, not being able to supply air units and not being able to supply cameras. So don't think for 1 minute the reason this was on sale was because it's end of life or anything like that. I spoke to a few people on it, and I've been assured it was simply a marketing move. The reality is, you can't buy DJI cameras right now. You can't buy air units. Basically, it was time to hit while the opportunity was there. But that doesn't mean everyone who buys it is going to be happy, and it doesn't mean that it's an out-and-out amazing deal, because remember, whilst it was $99, you have to have a set of goggles with HDMI input. So if you didn't have a set, you were still limited. But frankly, for $99, £100, it was an absolute stonking deal. As I said in the video, you could get it from Get FPV and a few others. I have another one because this one's to me on loan. I've bought my own one so I can send this back to its owner. I've got that coming in the next couple of weeks as well. Now, we've also then had the release of the beta camera for the Byte system, which is this one here, which is the HD0. I have it on this quad. We have the actual version here, which if I go to the overhead, you can see it in there. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. Now, it is a beta camera, so I can't review it because I agreed not to review it. But I will give you some thoughts, because people have been sharing thoughts on it. So if they can, I can. It's as simple as that. And really, what is the score with these two? Because we have an established digital HD FPV system, and we have this one, which is growing in popularity. So really, what we've got to start with on this is price, and where do these systems end up? Now, obviously, the DJI system is heavily expensive. The goggles alone, about £600, I think about $500. Air units, $99 with cameras, between $150 and $180 with a camera, or you're paying $100 for a standard air unit and $50 to $70 for a camera. Then we have Byte, which you can get these goggles for $250. You can get the other 200 milliwatt VTX for $50 and a camera for $50. So you can get a full system for about $350 compared to the almost $800 on the DJI. The camera, Bruce, beta, not the quad. I built the quad, the camera's the beta. So there is a vast difference in cost between these two systems. You've got one which you can have for $350 and one which is about $600 or $700. But it really isn't as straightforward as that because they both have their plus sides and downsides. Now, HD0 is now really being pushed as an analog replacement and not a comparison system to DJI. It's not being marketed now by Carl at DiviMath as an alternative. It's meant to be the alternative for analog, or the push forward into digital for analog users, and not directly compete with DJI. Now, I'm not going to out and out say that is correct or it isn't, because it isn't for me to say. At the end of the day, they can market this system as much as they want, and whichever way they want to. However, comparison is inevitable. You cannot have two HD systems and not compare them. It's just not possible. There are upsides and downsides to both. What I will say, though, is I'm going to address some real specific things on this, and it's some things that I think it's a bit of nonsense, and there's one or two things I do want to sort of smash out, and the big one of these that you'll hear up front is people don't want to support DJI because they're a closed company who are only interested in themselves, and HD0 are the good guys because they want to work with companies and they want to support the community. Now, I'm going to address a few things on that because, yes, whilst on the surface that's all very nice and good, the reality is both of these systems are closed source. DJI have their own custom IP. DiviMath have their own custom IP. The argument that this is closed and if DJI want to stop making it, they could at any moment, stands the same for this system as well. DiviMath could go out of business tomorrow and no longer be making chips. So there is no argument here to agree one is more open than the other. The only difference is DiviMath have openly said they want to work with more partners. However, here is the irony of this, and this isn't meant as an against DiviMath or HD0, but DJI are working with more partners than they are. So we have DJI who are working with Cadex, and we have DJI who are working with RunCam. So it's not quite as straightforward as saying these are the good guys, these are the bad guys. These digital systems are both proprietary. They are both closed source. Yes, HD0 want to work with other companies. They want to be seen to be open, and they are being open, but don't think for one moment this is open source. If DiviMath fell out of business tomorrow, and I don't say they are, but if they did, this system would cease to exist. Just like if DJI decided to end this system, it would cease to exist. Whilst this system is being pushed as an analog replacement, it isn't open. And whilst it's priced very competitively, it is still a closed proprietary system. So that is just one thing I wanted to get out of the bat, because it's something you see pushed back and forth. And I don't mean any of this is plus for DJI or plus for HD0 or negative. I'm being abundantly clear on this as much as I can to make sure people fully understand what the situation is with these systems. All the gear in the market in hands would still work, as would DJI, Bruce. There's no requirement to update the DJI. There's no lockout on these to stop them working. So if DJI went out of business, your existing gear would continue to work. There's nothing that would block DJI versus this one. They basically will end up in the same position. So that's the thing. Now, the inevitable question on these comes around to image quality and what's best. Is it this? Is it this? Now, I'm not going to give you my opinion on this, but I will show a little bit of footage between these systems. But the thing to always understand is this. This system has an ear-end DVR. This system doesn't. So when you're comparing these, you really do have to compare goggle recording to goggle recording. If you don't, you're not getting a fair representation between the two. Because remember, the DJI system can record on the air side if you're comparing Caddx Vista to this, then it's a fair comparison. But if you're comparing Air Unit to that. Now, I have to say, whilst I'm not going to give you a review, this still seems to have the legs overall compared to that, even with this new camera. It's better, but it's still not at that level yet. And there is some stuff I'll talk about as we go through this. Now, really, when it comes down to choosing a digital system, you have to decide what's better for you, because where the decision lies between these is in two areas for me. How important is range and how important is latency? Because those two things will determine which system you go for, not the make, not the model, simply range and latency. If range is important and latency isn't, then it has to be this at the moment, because it just is better. But this today has surprised me on 200 milliwatt. This has surprised me today, how good it was been on 200 milliwatt. And I will be talking about that in the review. But if latency is important to you, it has to be this system. It's that simple. And really, if money's no object, that's the choice. Range versus latency and airside recording. Do you fly with a GoPro? Because if you want a recording, you're going to need this one. But I have to say, both these systems have their upsides and downsides. Both of them have failings. Both of them are upsides. Now, just to catch up on the chat before I go on, how much are the HDO2s? They're not cheap, but you can get the Scout HDs for $250, which I'm quite impressed with. They're okay. Is it safe to record to the Air Unit and goggles at the same time? Yes, Rob, a rock, glob, absolutely. No difference at all. No problems at all. No. Recording to the Air Unit is absolutely fine. It shouldn't make an ounce of difference to the performance of the system. It does. Okay, there is a penalty, I think, of a few milliseconds on latency, but if latency isn't important to you, don't worry about it. Price and application, Bruce. Exactly. If it comes down to cost, it's got to be that system to start with. Heard about the downgrade stop on all DJI products firmware. Yes, now DJI have removed the downgrade option. They've always done this. Okay, so Trail FPV said, has anyone heard about the downgrade stop on all DJI products? Okay, DJI from time to time have always done this. However, there is a reason for it on the current ready-to-fly products because of a hack by Drone Hacks that uses their own certificate system to bypass both their altitude limits and NFZs. As a result of that hack, DJI have had to release a new firmware for the Mavic Air 2, the Mavic Air 2S and the FPV drone, and they have removed all previous versions of firmware. So, you can thank Drone Hacks for the hacks that allow you to bypass the NFC system, but you can also thank them for the removal of downgrade capability. Because DJI is backed into a corner. They have no choice in reality but to remove the earlier firmware versions because it means their system is compromised. I have got some DVR to show from the Fat Shark, which we'll have a look at in a minute. But with a lower latency link for your controller. Yeah, I do wonder on the DJI, and this is an interesting observation that Failsafe has made. There's two elements to the latency here on these systems, especially DJI. You've got the video latency and the RC latency. And I do wonder if the RC latency follows the trend of the video latency, and as such, that is where people are finding it. Now, DJI do have the SBus Fast, I think the term was. It used to be called DJI HDL, but it's SBus Fast. But I do wonder if the latency felt on the DJI can be as much down to the RC as it is the goggles. And what would be really interesting is if someone wanted to fly them both in exactly the same situation where they know they're going to drop the latency up to see if they can feel the difference with the DJI remote and without it, with something like Tracer or Crossfire, something like that, or Express LRS. So that's the reason DJI have stopped the firmware downgrades. Bruce, the BLC they're so keen to be compliant to avoid the rule breaking and the way to allow these countries to hack the FC power levels. Yeah, look, DJI are backed into a corner when it comes to their own system being compromised. It should be added on this, right? They have closed the loophole that was found for these hacks, but they have still left the force into FCC mode in place. So they're not completely working against the community. The problem with these hacks was they were using their own system against them, and it was always going to be closed down. The day I saw that hack be announced and released, I said I personally didn't think it was a good idea. Because when you use a company's own system against them, their first task is going to be to lock it down. And that's what they've done. So we can agree as if they should or shouldn't, but look, DJI locked down their systems. That's a fact. It's not even worth debating because it's a fact of what they do. So when a hack is released that compromises some of the safety elements of their system, so for instance, the altitude bypass, they are always going to get involved. Personally, I don't think altitude bypass should have been released. I think the use cases for needing to go over 500 meters altitude on a ready-to-fly drone are so small, the harm it could do outweighs the benefit for those who need it. And if you want a drone that does that, build yourself one. It's that simple. And at least then you've taken some time to learn what the system's all about. I do not fully like the fact that you could buy an off-the-shelf Mavic, have zero experience, hack it, and then fly it up to some crazy altitude. I do see why there are issues with that. I know some of you won't agree, but I personally think that is it's a dangerous step at times. I think they're locking it down because their system's compromised. It's that simple. They won't like that system being compromised. That's the basics of it. So that is that one. So on these systems, we've got DJI, which is 720p up to 120 frames a second, low latency mode, can record up to 1080p, has up to 7 kilometers range. You have HD0, 720p 60, but fixed low latency, and they will feel about the same because of the way the cameras work, and Chris Rosser will show you this in the future. I've seen some stuff and it's very cool. No onboard recording. At the moment, maximum of 500 milliwatts, but there's more around the corner. Range is decent. I'm not going to say 7 kilometers. But at 200 milliwatt, it's okay. It's not terrible. It really isn't. And it's much cheaper. Now, the question really is this worth changing analog for? And that's really the big question here. Now, what got DJI a lot of adoption was the wow factor in these goggles. And I will be honest, I had that wow factor again today. Earlier on where I spoke to you guys and said about I prefer these goggles. So I did 5 packs on HD0. Absolutely fine. No issues at all apart from my GPS isn't working, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then I moved on to this. And I have to say, again, it blew me away instantly. The immersiveness of the DJI system is just so much more than these Scout HDs or my Dominator V2s with the module. The DJI is just bigger, more immersive, and you feel like you're in the image. This feels more like you are looking through a set of binoculars, or you're watching some screens from a distance. The screens are set back in these goggles a little bit. It's not immersive. This today again, after putting that on for 5 packs, this again blew me away. The second I put the DJI on, I was like, wow, this is amazing again. And it's that factor that got this system adoption. And I do think Divimath and Byte or Fat Shark have missed this one important impact. Why do cakes look so good? Cakes look so good because they want you to buy them and they want you to eat them. You can make a cake look however you want, but if it's not inviting, you don't want it. And that is the rule on this. This system really blows you away when you first put it on. To me today, and this isn't a review, but it still looks clearer, it still looks cleaner, it's a tidier image overall compared to this. Now, I was flying this in a little bit of lower light today, so the footage we'll take a look at in a minute isn't the best time of day for it. These were test flights, there's nothing special here, it's just a bit of fields footage. But this does give you the wow factor. The second you put the DJI on, I get the wow factor on my Sky Zones every time I use them after the HD. Do you know what? I really would love to try Byte on those Sky Zones. I would love to try Byte on the Sky Zones. I do need to try that. But yeah, and I'm not going to get away from that fact. The wow factor on this today was these. And again, I think if you were to have someone who was an analog user and you went, I'm going to give you this for 2 flights and then I'm going to give you that for 2 flights, short of them being out and out racing, I still think they're going to buy that just because of how it feels and looks. And that's what's got this the adoption, is how good the immersive feel is, how big the image is. It just looks tidy. And this system needs that. It's not got it yet, even with this new camera. It's good. It's HD. It's much better than analog, in my opinion, now. It wasn't as good before. I think it's a real step forward. I think for $350, if you can get a full setup for $350 or pounds, I think it's very, very interesting in price. But it's, you know, I think, did someone put an analogy? Sorry, I couldn't even say it then. They really are. Ford versus, what was it? Someone said it. I would say it is still a little bit like sitting in a Ford and sitting in an Aston Martin. And I don't mean it's better all around, because it isn't. That latency issue on this isn't necessarily the perfect solution for everyone, but it does wow you with image quality. Don't forget that once you got the goggles and radio, DJI isn't that expensive per craft. No, exactly. DJI does include everything. DJI does give you the antennas, as Bruce just said. You do get it is, you know, there are a lot of benefits, and it's unfair to price them across, because as Bruce has just said, you do get the onboard recording. So, you know, the DJI will give you the option of not having to fly a GoPro, 7 kilometers range at the cost of latency. I think what's really interesting in all of this is there is a battle going on between these two systems, and the battle is in the community more than the systems themselves, because Divimath aren't really arguing that it's going to be an out-and-out winner. My concern for them on this, and my advice to them, is they need to stop promoting its low latency is best for racing, because it is. But the amount of people who are out and out racing is very, very small compared to the larger FPV community. You know, it's too small a niche, in my opinion, to market the system on. It now needs to be marketed on a number of factors, and it's getting there. It's building. It's getting, hopefully, this higher power output, VTX, but we need a DVR. We want an airside DVR as well. And when we've got that, I then think it's going to be interesting. It is higher than analog. Yeah, there's some really interesting stuff coming out on that, Bruce. Chris has been doing high speeds on the way these systems behave, and it's really quite interesting. So, for instance, analog, you're getting on high-speed camera, you're taking about 17 milliseconds to get a full field in. So the start of a field is about 3 milliseconds, but the end of the first field is about 16, 17 milliseconds. And then you're talking 36, 37 milliseconds for the full frame on analog because it's interlaced. So, whereas DJI, for instance, is writing in about the bottom half of the image first and then the top half. So it can take 2 frames before the full image is actually shown on the screen. And it actually comes up as a half screen along the bottom because it writes from the bottom up, which is interesting, and we assume it's because the display's upside down. But there's some real interesting behavior on that. But yeah, I think if you're marketing this system, you've got to be very careful to market it on its one major benefit, and it needs more improvement. Still analog flyer, and it will be true, and find it to be true FPV for me. I think racers are kind of doing a lot of placebo, otherwise they would have spotted that Fly Sky was faster than FR Sky. Good evening, Chipperoo. Yeah, that's true. You know, okay, I think a lot of this is adoption. You will adapt to all of these systems. I think part of the problem is people will try something and go, oh, I don't like that. And then that's it. Fly with it for a week, fly with it for a month. You'll adapt. You'll adapt to the latency. They're not flying it because they don't want to spend the money. Look, here's one of the big reasons I suspect racers are not flying this. Because they are destroying cameras and VTXs at a rate of knots. And the supply for this would simply be too expensive. And I suspect most of the proper racing guys are not paying for their gear. And as such, it's all part of a sponsorship deal anyway. So they're having to fly what they're told to fly. Evening, morning, bro. Gary, how are you? Gary Higgins, good evening. MyManX FPV, how are you? So also your brain is muscle moving latency is about also your brain to muscle moving is about 18 milliseconds. Yeah, and the interesting thing on analog is, so you get a full field at about 16 to 18 milliseconds. So that's obviously 50, that's every other line. Your brain will interpret that as change. So whilst you're not getting a full frame every 20 milliseconds, you're getting a substantial change. And so it'll be interesting to see. Oh, I'm faster. That's amazing. So with regards to this isn't a review, should you buy this or that. This is really to say the battle is on these systems. Now, let's take a look at a little bit of footage from today. I'm going to show you. Now, before we do that, I will just show you both of these builds a little bit because these are both brand new builds. Let's go to the overhead. Let's go to clean. Let's go to that. So, what we've got here now is 2 absolute brand spanking new aircraft builds. We have the Speedy Bee V2 frame. I'm using the Exing 2207s 2400 kVs because I'm flying 4S. I still prefer 4S, to be honest. Obviously, this is flying with a full DJI FPV air unit with the custom. And I'm using the actual DJI camera on this one. But I'm going back to the Polar Vista, or the Polar camera. Now, on the Shark Byte build, we have the Diatone Roma V1 frame, not the V2. Same motors, Exings again. And then this one, we have a flight stack from Hobbywing, which is the 40 amp 4-in-1. This one here. And then we've got the TX5 R.1 in the back on this one. So that's the Shark Byte. And I'm using the right-hand circular polarized antenna for Menace because it is right-hand circular polarizer. And then in here, we do have the new HD0 camera. Now, let me just focus. Ooh. Get off. There we go. Now, this camera, for those who haven't seen it, is basically the same as the Runcam Mippy for the DJI. It is almost identical externally, except it just says HD0 on the back. You can just see it down in there. Now, I do have a strange fault on this, which I haven't figured out yet. And that fault is, the second I actually have the VTX powered up, even if it's not outputting RF, because you can turn the RF off, it kills GPS. And I don't know why. I need to have a look of, have I done something silly with the UART ports? No, you can't, Bruce, but it looks identical. There's obviously different firmware, but it looks very, very similar. Apart from it has a different connector. It does have a different connector on the back, and I do show that in the review coming up a bit, or the overview, I should say. So that is the new Shark Byte build. It's been flown today. I've tuned it today. Just interesting observation on these two quads, right? Same PID, same rates, and the roamer is a lot more sluggish. A lot more sluggish. It's not particularly heavier neither, but it's just slower. RF noise from the pros and the Shark Byte. That's why broadcast is doomed. I don't know. I'm wondering, Bruce, if I've done something dull on the UARTs. I need to just check it isn't something crazy, because it is a H7. Is that a H7 or an F7 on this? It's an F7. So I just need to check I haven't done something dull. It's a different UART. We'll have a look at that in a minute. So, should we have a look at some footage? Now, I'm going to show you some footage from today, okay? Now, I'm going to be clear. This is not designed to be anything. These are basically test flights, because I've just built these quads. These have literally been finished in the last 24 hours. This is out in the field, taking them for a spin. So what we're going to do first of all is have a quick look at a Shark Byte flight. It is dusk. It is getting dark. This has been recorded at 720p on the goggles side, so you guys will be able to see that. Let me just... Now, what you'll notice at the start of this, just to be clear, you'll see some noise, and that is because it's in basically pit mode at this point. It's at the low power mode. That's been done intentionally just to allow it to not overheat on the ground. And the second I arm, it then will kick in. You'll see that change when I arm. You see the image change. Now, this is just one of the flights I had out today. Just seeing how the PIDs and everything feel. Now, if it looks quite misty, it is a bit of a hazy there. You can see I found it really slower on the flips compared to the other quad on the same rates. It wasn't behaving the same at all. So I need to just have a play with it. This is literally just some flights just to see how it was. It's just a little bit slow compared to the other one. I don't quite know why. I still need to go and tune that a little bit. You can see just the basic interference there that you start getting on Shark Byte, but it's just single blocks, single blobs, just heading around for a jaunt, seeing how it is. You can see, interestingly, and this is, I will say this, I didn't notice the interference that much whilst flying. When flying in the goggles, I didn't really see it. Where you're seeing these speckles here, and now it's cleared up, I wasn't really noticing it that much in the goggles themselves. But that was to the side of me then as well. Just seeing how it... So, it is quite hazy out today. Now, I'm going to show you now a similar flight with the DJI as well. So you can see. Now, I do have to add, the DJI has been recorded on the air unit. It wasn't recording on the goggles. I thought it was. It wasn't, unfortunately. So that means I am showing you a 1080p recording, not a 720p 720p recording. Be aware that they are not apples for apples. I was just seeing really how it felt. So this just gives you an idea. Now, this is dusk. You can see the sun is low in the sky. It's over there on that side there. So that gives you an idea on that. I will show you something else in a minute on this one. There should be one which is a bit of a longer flight. Let's just close that. Is it this one? One of these might be a bit longer. Let me just... Oh no, that's the one on the ground, not that one. Nope, not that one. I didn't record on a few flights. Yeah, just to show you on this. I just want to show you this, just to show you. This is it's tad lighter, just to show you how it looks. This is a bit more of a straighter run, but again, the sunlight is quite low, and again, we're blowing up 720p here. Now, the one thing I will show you is this flight I'm going to show you on the DJI was done after these. So, okay, let's get off this and get over to the DJI. Let me just put the chat back up so I can see it, see what people are saying. It was a lovely day here today. Always looks worse on the DVR. Okay, so let's have a look at the DJI. Now, again, unfortunately, this is air unit recording. So again, to be clear, this is 1080p. I thought I was recording in the goggles. I wasn't. As you can see, I put a folder in to go and grab the footage and found the bloody card was empty. I will be doing a direct comparison later in the week. But this one is just to show you the difference. Let me just pause it. I'll mute it, sorry. There we go. So, start that again. Now, you can see a difference on how DJI looks. This is 1080p, remember that. But I have to say, this is a later flight. So this is after the other ones. The sun's a bit further down. But it does look better. Now, this one was a bit of a cruising flight, this. You'd think I was flying a wing at this point, if it wasn't for the props. Also, my camera's loose on the DJI as well, so if you see a bit of vibration, that's down to me. I didn't bring a nut with me too. I spin around now, so you'll see. Let me just... Oh yeah, there we go. And I'll show you some other footage of the DJI doing the same sort of flips and stuff as the shark bite. Now we're out of the sun, you can see the DJI's come cleared a little bit. But this is air unit recording, 1080p, remember. It's not GoPro quality by any means. It really isn't. You know. Let me just skip through a bit more. This is really just to, the idea was this was just going to be a run just so I could see how the DJI looked compared to it. Now what I do want to show is if we come off this one, and probably this one. Yeah, this is the tuning flight on this quad. I was like, oh, this is different. It was faster, but it wasn't doing what I wanted it to do, and I was just checking the rates and seeing how things were behaving. I was looking for bounce and all the usual stuff. This is a more reflective flight compared to the Shark Byte one, because it's just a nice test flight. Bit of prop wash there. So again, you can just see the difference in how they look. You know, something I could do, and this probably isn't a fair thing to do, is because one is 1080p, one is 720p. But if we take number 6, you know, oh, they are at slightly different points. How do I get this to be smaller? Right, there we go. That's better. Just trying to get that to show the same. Okay, so now this is showing 1080p versus 720p. So again, this isn't 100% fair comparison, but just ooh, look at that. Hey, God, look at that. Wait there, 1 second. Let me open it in Handbrake. Not Handbrake. Open with VLC. Oh, can you open 2 at once in VLC or not? DJI. That one there. No, you can't. Okay, so if we keep that one there, and we'll open the Shark Byte again. And we'll stop that there. Nope, we probably want to be back a little bit. I'll compare them now just so I've got the same rough positions. Okay, we're not exactly the same, but we're pretty close. The field of view is different, but that just gives you an idea between the two systems, a little bit of what you're seeing. It's a different field of view, obviously, on the Shark Byte system, but there is quite a difference. And again, this isn't apples for apples because this isn't 1080p. This is 1080p versus 720p. I will be doing it in the goggles to show it properly, but I did just want to show you it like that. Do that again. There you go. You're sort of seeing the two. Ignore the actual moves that's going on. It just gives you an idea how the two systems look. You know, from here, the DJI is dramatically clearer. I mean, I'm not going to hide that. The DJI looks dramatically clearer here, but it's 1080p. Whereas that's 720 and goggles recorded, and we'd have to see how the DJI looked in the same scenario. But this is one of the benefits of the DJI. Bit of prop wash there as well. So, let's go back to that one. Let me just stop these recordings. So, whilst not a perfect comparison, I'll let you guys make your mind up. Let me just go up. Right, let me catch up on all the chat. Mexican Terror, how are you? Let me just make sure I get everything back up properly. Steve Mann, how are you guys? Karen to death with it. Lol. Just scrolling down. DJI imagery is far better. It is. There's no getting away from that, even in the goggles. What I'll say is the goggles on the DJI side just look better. And look, there's just no easy way of saying that. It's not meant to be anti-fat shark. It's not meant to be anti-diet thing. Image-wise, DJI still has the legs, but I want to try it apples for apples, and I'll be doing apples for apples. But it's not about comparison. It's just about seeing where one system's at versus the other. So, the fight is on with these things. That's where we're at so far. I've got a lot more testing to do because I've got to fix this GPS issue on this one, because the second I plug in Byte, my GPS dies. And I don't understand why. I thought it was the wiring, first of all, so I've moved it, and it still happens. So I now need to check, have I done something dull with the UARTs? Let's just have a quick look at that, shall we? We just plug it. I'll just check in Betaflight where the UARTs are, and then we'll talk about just plug it in 1 second. Just lost me extension cable. I wish this case had front mount USBs. Okay, so let's just have a look what's going on with the UARTs. Okay, so let's get on to Betaflight. Let's wait for it to connect. Go on to ports. Okay, so GPS is on UART 2. And nothing else is on UART 2. Okay, so that's working as it should be. It's on the correct it's on a different UART. I haven't done something dull, because obviously on UART 1 we've got the RX, we've got Byte. On UART 5, which is smart audio, which I've turned off a minute because I didn't want it. Physically distance. I may have to move it. Yeah, I'm going to try putting it, Bruce, away from the aerial at the back, because at the moment, if you look, you know, it's there. So what I'm going to do is unplug it and then like put it here on a battery and see if it's better there, because I've now put the cable underneath on. It's running over the top of the. You can't see it there, but the cables are running over the top. What's weird though is it's still doing it with the RF off, which I find interesting. But yeah, it's all correct in here. So interesting. Okay, right, guys. If you've got any questions, let me just get that one out of the way. Please do put them in the comments. Let me know. Right, air units. Talk about the air units and the DJI. So whilst I'm on DJI, I'm going to talk about this bracket. Actually, it's nearly finishing. Actually, we're going to talk a bit about this bracket, which was available for the V2s. Let me just go up to there. Now, this bracket allows you to mount your DJI battery onto your head strap, and I showed it on the channel before, and it clips on by going over the head strap. So you've got a gap there, you put the strap up and it goes in there. Now, whilst it's all very nice, it keeps coming loose because it's got such a big gap. The head strap keeps coming out, and the second you take it off your head, it falls off. It literally always falls off. There's literally nothing I can do to stop it other than, yeah, Bruce, you could put some duct tape along there. I suppose that would do it. So what I decided to do was design my own one because I thought, well, look, this isn't working. It's driving me nuts. I need a different one. So what we have is this, and let me open this up and show you. And what we have is this, which is my design battery holder made from TPU. Now, the idea of this one, and I'll show it to you in person in a minute, is a similar design. So what we've got is an area for the battery to slide into. So rather than it clip into this one, it actually goes through all the way. We've got some holes here, which are for the battery LEDs. So it is centered with the one LED showing just here. And then that then gives us the holes for the other LEDs. We've then got a cable strap at the top. And the strap design that I've used is similar, but the idea is it looks a bit different. So what you've got is you've still got a notch, but the idea is you've got this gap that opens up, which then allows you to get the strap into there, and it takes a bit of faffing to get it in the full bit. The gap for it to come out of is in the middle, but because this is made of TPU, this all sort of collapses down on itself. So it doesn't actually... let me just put it back to where it was. It doesn't actually come off. It basically collapses against the back and seals itself in. Now, I have done a test run today, which is this one here. This is the first run. This had no holes for the LED. It was an initial just test run to see how it worked. It's got the thing at the top. It's got the strap bit that goes around the back of your head there. And then you can see that you've got the flexible bit there. So it goes into there, but the strap is really toughly held in place. You can get it out if you want to, but then the battery then will slide out of it because it's made of TPU. You can simply give your battery a slide and it will come out. And because it's TPU, it's soft, it's not hard. So yeah, so what I'm going to do is wait for the final design on this to be finished. So to push him in, you just put him in and you'll put that battery in about halfway, which is there. You've then got the cable in the top. That one through there. I have done some other mods, is smooth these edges off. These were a bit sharp on this one that I made. So what I am going to do is the test print on this is printing now, the final test print. It's nearly done. When that's done, it might be done before the end of this stream. I'll check it, we'll test it, and then I'm going to put it up on Thingiverse. And then they take about 3 hours to print, and then I'm going to print a bunch of them up and then send them out to the guys who asked for the other ones. So, yeah, it's quite a nice design. I haven't shared it yet. I just want to make sure it fully things. As soon as it does, I will stick it on Thingiverse and I'll share it. I'll stick it on the Discord server as well for you. Just use a battery strap to hold. I just use a battery strap. Battery strap's good. But yeah, it's hopefully it's a bit of a tidier solution and it won't come off or anything like that. And the nice thing is because it's TPU, it flexes a little bit as well. I've been trying to figure a way of putting less TPU in it to reduce the print time, because the print time is like 3.5 hours. How long does the DJI battery last? Do you know what? It does a good. The official is like 2 hours. Some memories from the 70s, Manix FPV. I think it's rated at 2 hours. I've generally not flattened it, unlike a normal lipo, which I flatten all the time. I flatten a normal lipo all of the time, whereas the other one I don't. But yeah, it's not a bad design. I think it's come out okay. I'm quite pleased with it. It seems to do. Yeah, 3D printing is great if you have a good printer. That's the reality on it. About an hour is safe. An hour is safe. Yeah, I was doing it in my pocket. I tend to fly with the DJI LiPo in my pocket, and I have a habit of walking off or taking it out or doing something. Bruce all the way, exactly. That's why I have a Mark III in the corner rattling away to itself, because it just works. That's the thing. Okay, so DJI ear units. Now, guys, before we get on to the ear units, I'm going to have a drink. And if you guys have any questions, please do put them in the comments. Let's just get on to here. There are 73 of you tonight. Good evening, good evening, good evening. I hope you are all safe and well. Yes, and that's why I tend to keep it strapped in the goggles and even charge it in the goggles, Bruce. That is why I like the idea of that. Only 17 likes. Okay, guys, that's a good. Let's see if we can turn that around. Before we get into the ear units, I'll just give you guys an update on the Mambo. Loving the Mambo a lot, I have to say. Loving the Mambo a hell of a lot. Interestingly, and a comment between Crossfire and Tracer. So today, Byte is flying Tracer. DJI is flying Crossfire. I did get low RSSI on Tracer today. Never had it on Crossfire. I did manage to get it to... Ooh, you want to be careful. And that happened in that video you were watching, where I was heading towards where the most sparkles was. But I did manage to do it. No, it's not. No, but it is interesting that I'd set up the warnings recommended, and it just come up. Will DJI ever fix the ear unit SD card error? I don't get it. It's not. I've only ever seen it once on the bench. If you format the card in the system, it should be fine. If you format the card in the goggles, I don't ever get an issue. I never get it myself. Do I think the Radio Master T16 is still the best radio? I think it depends your use case. I think it is a very good radio for the money. It is a very good option. I think I'm now of the opinion, is it the best radio for each person? That's where it comes down to, because I find the T16S a little bit big. I just don't need a radio that big with all of that functionality. That's a really good point, Robin. T16S perfect for wings. Oh, yes. I think for standard, for FPV, for Bando, for racing, you just don't need all of that functionality. I really like the Mambo. I have to say, I really, really like the Mambo. Although, I will add this. I have started seeing some jitters quite much bigger than I've had on my other radios at center stick, and I don't know if anyone else has seen this. I ended up recalibrating it twice this week. Center stick was moving around a lot by itself. And I don't know where that's come from. And silly things like center stick being at 1486, not 1500, where it should be, and then me having to go in and tweak that in the settings outside of trimming. You know, I expect center stick to be 1500 across the board, ignoring the throttle stick, but on the other stick, on the right stick. But mine has started, and I didn't notice that when I first had it. for the drones. I like it too. It's not as bad, worse than the Tango. Let the stick setup where they've got a whole devices amount of PBs is horrible. Yeah, I've just Mambo. It is a lovely size radio. It is really, really nice. You can get it if you change the offsets or something. Yeah, I ended up having to change because mine was all stock and it just started doing it out of nowhere. What the Mamba needs is digital gimbals like the Varna got. Did I mention that? Yeah, it's just... Where is it? Let me just grab it. And something else it did, which really concerned me, and I will mention this now, is it started doing these jitters, right? So I recalibrated. After recalibrating the throttle stick, when I was moving it just up and down, so just up and down like this, the actual output was from that corner to that corner. So it was jittering, so I recalibrated, followed the process. I calibrated just this stick, because you can calibrate them individually. And after the calibration, I was doing this, but the RC output was going from that corner to that corner. And I couldn't stop it doing it until I turned the radio off, turned the radio back on, and recalibrated the sticks again. Pretty sure Bardwell said the same in his setup of the Mambo about the offsets. Possibly not slow enough, Bruce. No. Calibration doesn't always work. Yeah, very weird. Very weird. Good evening, Vitryfly? How are you? Hope you're safe and well. It was really freaky. So again, you went through the process, up, down, left, right. Let me just power him on. Yes. Welcome to Mambo. Put myself up there. Yes. Yes. So, where are we at the moment? Let's have a look what our outputs are. No. Here. Can't see it here. Yeah, now can you see there, look? So, I've ended up having to offset that channel at 2. And here's something else I've noticed as well, right? So we're going right down. So you're getting 2. Okay, it's 1 or 2. It's not a lot, but it's there. And you're getting 1 on there. But you don't get that on the throttle. You're starting to see a twitch. Now, I know you have your dead zones for this stuff. Don't get me wrong. But it is a sign some stuff is going on, in my opinion. Now, I can't remember what I did. I think I ended up... So, where are we now? So, if we go there... I'm trying to remember where I did it. Yes, offsets. I ended up putting a 1 on the offset. I couldn't remember what I did. Yes, I ended up just offsetting slightly on there. I couldn't remember what I actually did, but that was it. Let's just get back through. Yeah, see, you can... Good there. Good there. Yeah, you can see we are slightly off. I could have offsetted it there. Because you've got the offset here as well, haven't you? So what we've got is I've offsetted the outputs, not the inputs. But we could have offsetted it here. You know, if we look there. It's not really the best place to... $1.7. Yeah, it's yeah, it is what it is. It's not perfect. I don't use the shoulder button either. I think the same on the sim of the race start. I'm still trying to get used to this shoulder disarm. I like the idea, but I am finding it not as quick. I would prefer a switch, if I'm honest. I would prefer a switch to be able just to flick it down or flick it back up as I always have. I would be seriously tempted to do a modification on this and proper switch there. Next to it. I would be seriously tempted to do one. Or I'll remove that button and 3D print a part and put a switch on that. I would be really tempted on that. My granny's TV uses the same switch as those buttons. Yes. What I find is this. So I'm flying, and I end up flying like there, my normal way, and then I end up then moving this finger up to here to do the disarm, but I just don't find I've got the reaction like, because what I used to be doing was, as I'm coming into landing, I would I wouldn't need dexterity in the finger. I would just move it up and flick the switch. Boom, gone. Whereas I'm finding, because you're having to push in and release, I'm just not as comfortable with it. Ring finger disarm equals no. Yeah, that's the problem in it. It's thing. Okay, so man, those don't look like very good gimbals. Steve Mann said radio, but change out the gimbals. Fortunately, they're Hall effect. I'm disappointed about the quality of the Mambo and the missing option to order a crossfire Mambo. Agreed type. And the car processor is tidy. All the others just have center four corners. TBS make move positions. Yeah, on this one, Bruce, I've not done the Tango because I don't have one. But is it? This asks you to go up, down, left, right in a plus. Then you've got to go in each corner, each position, one at a time. It doesn't give you long to do it either. I've decided I just don't like the shoulder button on the Mambo. Ended up reassigning the arm to an actual switch. Ghost FP, I'm 100% with you. I like it. I just can't get used to it. That's my problem. It's probably just a muscle memory for pushing a button instead. Agreed. Absolutely. And the fact you've got to push the button in to release it. It's not just a tap. The problem is, it is, you know, I'm there now, right? So if I go onto the overhead, look. It's not just a tap. It's a physical, you know, there's a physical press needed. I really will be tempted to either replace that with a 3D printed insert, and then a switch, or I may drill a hole and put a switch here because I have that for something else. Although I could just change it to that and do that. As I'm coming in, knock it off. I might just do that. I'm persevering. Persevering, as they say at the moment. It's a great radio, though. I do like it. I really like the size. I use the switches pre-arm only. The Archangel, if they'd bought a pre-arm... okay, it's probably just muscle memory, crossfires. And they couldn't get the parts. It is interesting, because you can't get the Tango neither, can you? Apparently SMD components, even things like resistors, are 50-week lead time. It's all crazy out there right now. It really is. It's the plus movements that are hard, especially with the throttle gimbal, because you keep... Yeah, that's it, Bruce. What about a Mambo with no internal module? Could be an idea, but then again, it's not going to be much cheaper. You know, at the end of the day, the Mambo with the crossfire, which I've got here, and I need to get the proper antenna, is still only less than $200. £200, $200. So it's not expensive. It's a nice radio. It's just not perfect. Okay, so... Any questions, guys? Please do put them in the comments. As the chat bot has just said, super chats are always welcome. If you want to know anything else, please do let me know. Okay, let's talk about these damn ear units a little bit. Now, there will be a video coming up on this. Let me just grab a box. Let me just do the overhead a bit better than it is. 1 second. Can't find the button. 1 minute. Oh, okay. Okay, so what is going on here? Well, let's get it. This week, I burnt out another DJI ear unit completely unexpectedly. Now, just to explain, I landed. Let me grab a quad frame. This thing, and it's apart now because it's killed 2 ear units. Because of that shoulder switch on the Mambo, I hadn't quite mastered the kill before hitting the ground on that one, and ear mode kicked in, the traditional bump, and this is the truth. I wasn't filming, but this is as how hard it landed, like that, and it did bounce. It sort of went boo, boo, killed it, and it upright, and all I saw was a little faint wisp of smoke. And I was like, what? Hold on a minute, what's going on? Now, for those who'd seen, let me show you what I could see externally on this. Let me bring these files up. DJI. Just to show you guys the actual damage. No, not that file. No, not that one. Probably this one. Now, there will be a video coming on this. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so this is just me showing. Let me get this off the screen. You don't need me. Oh, look at that. I got a camera on a camera on a camera. Please ignore that a minute. So this is the ear unit I took out. Now, please do ignore this stuff here I'm pointing to, okay? This is where it gets jammed in a frame. It's nothing on the DJI. It's nothing caused by the crash. It was pressed in between some bolts extremely tight. So that was one of the reasons I didn't bother to send it back, because DJI are just going to look at that and go, it's crashed. That's on most of my ear units, sort of thing. Now, if you look, let's get past this. You can see this was the connector, and externally, the damage you could see was this damage here, which you could see just a bit of a black mark, and I had shown before a black picture of the black cable, and this ear unit absolutely stunk. Smelled so bad, it was ridiculous. So we proceeded to take it apart. Inside, there was no real damage there, so the next job was to proceed to get the can off. And showing you inside, you can see, let me just go back to there, you can see that there's quite a bit of smoke damage on the inside of the can here, and there's damage here. And if we go in there, the damage you can actually see on this is on the regulators again. So we have a coil here which is burned. We have some burning around the 5 volt regulator, and definitely some burning around the 3.3 volt regulator. Now, just getting in closer, what I end up doing is removing some of the cans so you guys can see a bit closer. And what we have is some burning here, definite large amounts of burning here, with the IC, frankly, destroyed. Let me just get in closer. Let me just have a look. We remove some components. So I go on to actually remove both of the regulator ICs, and there's quite a lot of burning here. Now, after my testing on this ear unit, this coil was fine. There was no shorts, but there was also a short to ground through this coil, which is the output coil off the 3.3. At this point here, there is PCB damage. You can actually see the layers on the PCB, and it is shorted to ground. And that was the point I left it on that video. So then, yesterday, we did a live stream. And let me just find this. This is Lewis Rossman. Let's go to the channel and find yesterday's live stream. Mads Random Live. Ooh, we don't want that. And yesterday, I started doing a bit more investigation on the live stream because I wanted to understand what the situation was. So if I put this full screen again, you guys can see a bit closer here now. So I set the camera up better. So what you can see is this pin has been burnt on the 5 volt regulator. So we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a 5-pin QF, QFN package, and we've only got 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's burnt the input. There's some damage around here as well as damage to the coil. You can also see here again, 2 pins have now gone, as well as some damage to the PCB. And the idea on this stream was to try and figure out where it was overheating. So we did some voltage injection, and the board started to get very hot. And I hadn't actually fully diagnosed the unit. Well, there, let me get to the interesting point. So what we ended up doing is pulling the other side of the board off just to have a look, because I hadn't actually looked at the other side of the board yet. And only when I took the can off the other side of the board did I realize, oh my God, we have more damage than I was anticipating. So on the other side of the board, under the other can, it had completely nuked itself here as well. Just get in and focus it. Completely destroyed itself. So yeah, this one is a goner, to say the least. There's going to be no repairing that one. Now, just to show you it, because I have got them here, my box of ear units, look. Let's go full. We're now building up a supply. So this is it here. I've pulled off all the regulators. Oh, that's the first one that we burnt. So we've got this one, and now I've cleaned this up. Look, it's actually burned a hole through the copper layers down to probably the main power layer in the copper as well. It's absolutely incinerated it. It really is. And then this is in burnt on this side. And then this is the other one I tried to repair before, which we managed to partly do it. But yeah, so whereas this one hasn't incinerated here, this one has. Now, the questions people will ask is, well, why? Why have I burnt 2 air units? Well, the only reason I can really come to the conclusion is, on the first one, it burnt on the bench, and I think it was a power supply issue because it was using a bench supply. It had the correct voltage. It had everything it should have had, but it burnt itself out. This one burnt on landing. I was using a capacitor. There was a cap on there, but it must have been a surge off the motors as it did that bounce that burnt it. Now you can see on this one there has been a substantial amount of damage. It has destroyed both the 3.3 and the 5-volt regulators, as well as that IC on the other side of the board as well. So much so it has burnt its way through the top layer of the PCB and incinerated itself. So whatever the spike was, it must have been quite big. Now, this raises some interesting questions because I've not seen many other people have problems, yet I have. I'm beginning to think the DJI Air unit especially is quite fragile. It really is quite fragile compared to the others. It was straight battery voltage, no back, no nothing. But yeah, now what I am going to do is install a little device called a spike absorber, which is from FetTech. Let's just put this on. There you go. This little device here, if you haven't seen it, I've ordered 5 of these. FetTech spike absorber. It's simply using TVS diodes to just clamp down above 25.2 volts. And hopefully this will prevent it happening in the future. Now, I would say if you are using the DJI unit, I would strongly consider getting one of these if you're using it on straight battery voltage. I would highly advise it. Remove it just simply because of the cost. You know, it's five quid. I think if you're running one off a BC, I think you're probably okay. But I think if you're running straight bat voltage, then you want to be using one of these, and I will be using one of these moving forward. Smash to smithereens. That's my standard landing Manix FPV. Yeah, it bounced nothing terrible. You should save yourself simply by buying burnt out air units on eBay. I wish I could find them. You can't get them at all. I don't like the screens that are below the neck strap. Ooh, time for the fire report, Ghost FPV. P1 transplant, yeah, I think that's a big ask. What is concerning is that in 2 incidents, the boards have been completely destroyed. You know, these are not repairable by any means. Both of them, and they've both gone in very similar ways. Both have wiped out the 3.3 and the 5-volt regulator and the track to it as well. It's not just the regulator that's being wiped out, it's the track too. I don't think there's any protection on these at all. And these regulators are quite well rated. They're not, you know, they will take a 6S voltage, these regulators. They are actually rated. What are they rated at? I can't remember. Let me just check. I'll tell you now. FPV out wiki. I just need the FPV out wiki a minute to get the image up because I've forgotten the part number of the regulator. FPV out. Handy images. Where is it? Repositories. There's one of these that's got some handy images, and I've lost it. DigiView Android. DigiView Wiki. Useful images. There we go. So the regulator on these, if you guys haven't seen this, the wiki for FPV out, they have some real nice close-ups. So this is how it should look. Okay, so these are the 54335As. That's it. 54335A TI. So this regulator is rated at Vmax 28 volt. So it's going to take quite the voltage. It's not simply a 4S regulator, this. She will take the input. But if you haven't seen FPV out have a full set of really good images on these. So what you've got is, just so you understand the setup on these, you've got a 3.3 volt regulator here and a 5 volt regulator here. These are both powered off the same power rail. So voltage comes in here. You can see DJI put this little pink mark on the voltage input rails on both of these. So you have a pink mark here and a little pink mark here, just to highlight. And again, you've got a pink mark here. They're also doing it to show where the pin, the correct direction for the chips, but it's actually the power input rails. It's easy to identify them that way. And again, they do it all over the board where they think. But what you can see is we have. So what happens on these regulators is you have input on this pin, input on this pin, output on this pin. So output here goes to the coil, through the coil, heads off to the rest of the board. Same on this one, through the coil, out. We've got our input pins here. Now, unfortunately, this image doesn't give us a very close view. It would be nice to get in a bit closer on these to be able to see the tracks a bit better. And then you've got the system management IC here, which gives 4 different voltage outputs. I think that one's 0.9 of a volt. One of these is 1.3. I think you got 1.1. And there might be a 1 volt rail as well. I can't quite remember the voltage numbers off the top of my head. And again, that's then to supply the P1 and all of its other bits. Do normally come out directly off the battery. I am flying mine off the batteries, yes. On an S pack. No, they don't. 4S. They don't have a lot of headroom. No, Bruce. There's a bit there, but there's not a lot. Try clamping with MOV. Bruce takes no prisoners. Everybody, we're talking about anything but board repair. Self-destruct signal GPS address units. Visited from the back. I did flight controllers. Madman X. Yeah, you do get some benefits to that. I think 22V limit is too high. It won't take much more than a couple of volts to go over the 916. But in theory, Bruce, those regulators can take 28 volt. I binned one on a Beck with a 6S. Ouch, AK. Polyfuse in line with the air unit. That'll stop the burning. Yes, it would. They are only 4S rated. Is a 50 volt cap and not low ESR. Must be low ESR, as Bruce says. Yeah, they need to be low ESR. Cheaper regulators and under provisioned. The regs are good. The Texas Instruments, there seems to be, I don't know, the design certainly likes to burn itself when something goes wrong. The air unit with the and the air unit and motors were the only thing that survived. Lewis Rossman challenge. Well, yes. Yeah, I do wonder there's something that causes this. It's two similar incidents. I'd like to see more E-units to understand it more. Now, I have ordered, as Type reminded me earlier, I have ordered finally, and I've been wanting to do this for a while, is I've ordered myself a microscope. Because it's one of the tools I've wanted for the bench for quite a long time, and now is a good time to do it, simply because I want to try and have a good look over the circuit on a fully working E unit. I'm going to be stripping a fully working one to get a better understanding of where bits should be and how far we can go to repair these. Avin Levy and Sean Mullins, thanks for the subscriptions, guys. Do appreciate it. You can, yes, you can mount it before. I think, what's the current rating on the FetTech? And just whether you can do it. Let's just have a look. FetTech. Basically, there's no rating on it, so you can install it. You can install it anywhere on the line. So you would install it at the earliest point at the battery voltage, so you could just tag it on, because it's not in line, it's not a series device. So if we, oh god, wrong one, desktop. If you take it, it just goes on the V in like a capacitor. Think of it like a clamping capacitor. Think of it like that. Now it'd be nice to have a 4S version. Just put it on the ESC and put a cap on it. Yeah. Put it on the antenna, avoid damage. And it's just got 3 diodes. But I have heard they work very, very well. Type, I was asking for a microscope to support the channel. Yeah, I've finally got one ordered from China. It's going to take a while. It's going to take about 2-3 weeks. They're not cheap. I've gone for Akins, and I've gone for the cheaper stand. A lot of the pricing on them is the double stand. I've gone for the single arm stand. It should be fine for my use. It's not like it gets used every day, and it will have a camera as well. So, and then I need to get a new hot air station, but that's going to be next month after I've paid my tax bill. Just putting ESC on pads and clamp it. Yeah. Time to get acquainted with the Whoop. Yes, because Bruce is in lockdown. Heavy, heavy, restrictive lockdown. Just like Bruce deserves. If you get a microscope, be sure to get the optical fire suppression add-on. Could also be heat. Yeah, this one was pretty much all right. You know, it was jammed in a frame. It was in that. You know, the marks on that air unit are from it jamming between those screws. I know you guys can't see very well. Oh, I'm going to have to refocus. And Oh, the thing's finished. I've just heard the Prusa finish. So the marks on that air unit are from the extended back. Wait for the camera to sort itself out. Today, Chameleon. Thank you. This is a modified back end for the Chameleon TI. to extend it for the DJI unit, and so the screw heads are either side. So those marks you saw in the ear unit are simply from it going into that gap. It just slides into that gap, and it had then a piece of support here. That was my TPU mount. But I've retired this frame because it's bad luck and it's doing my head in. Should I do a quick and easy spike suppressor circuit? Bruce, we always like spike suppressor circuits. Right, let me go and get this unit. Look at that. A fresh print. That's come out all right. The lettering actually come out, which I wasn't expecting it to do. Oh, let's get off this. Oh, we need to come out a little bit. So this is the new battery strap. This is the final build. Right, let me just get this one off. And see if my holes fit as well. So the idea of this is to go onto the FPV goggles. So the way it fits in is this. So you slide the strap up into there. You then hook it under so it goes into there. And then it goes on like that. That then goes on to the back of the strap. You then put the battery in this side here. So at 50%. Oh, he's just come off. It needs to be tight to make sure it holds. So let me just get it in the right place. A little bit of a tap. Probably could do with loosening it up a tad. There we go. Oh, I moved it again. Now the idea is it will stay in this. Just a little. There we go. Oh, tiny. I want to move it a touch. Boom. Got it. Here we go. Press the button. You can see. Oh, this one's down to one LED. Look at that. Let me find me charging LED cable. Can't see all of the LEDs. No need to line it up. If you had clear TPU, yeah, you wouldn't need to line it up. I just don't have any clear TPU. I've only got black. There we go. So I'm happy with that. But if you've got clear TPU, yeah, you don't have to worry about the lights. Nice. Tiny bit of stringing, as there always is with TPU. I did design it, so this will now end up on Thingiverse. So this design will now today end up on Thingiverse. Now it's done for the V2s. I'll be putting that one up later today. Probably be tomorrow morning now, if I'm honest. Come on, let's get it done now. For those who want it now, I'll get it done now. Export as STL. Fine. We'll do it as DJI goggles V2 giggles. Oh God. Goggles V2 holder. Okay, right, let me just, oh, that was weird. Let me just come back to this. I'll stick it up now. We'll get it. Thingiverse. Let me just see, am I logged in? Log in. Okay, so if we go back to the desktop, now I'm logged in. Create, upload a thing on my computer. Downloads. So, DJI FPV goggles, Vision 2 battery holder, diamonds. What is it? What would we say it falls under, guys? It's an accessory, isn't it? It's not tool, toys. Electronic hobby. Tags DJI, FPV, FPV, Vision 2, goggles, Vision 2, DJI FPV Go 2, holder, battery. That's too long. Oh no. Okay, that's enough things on that. Worry about that in a minute. What? Summary? TPU. TPU battery holder for DJI FPV goggles Vision 2. Print in TPU vertically. There we go. Printer band, Prusa, because we like Prusa. Mark 3S. Rafts, no sports, no resolution. 200 makeup. TPU. Oh god. I don't care about any of that. Publish. There we go. It's there. Let me find the link. There we go, guys. That is now up. I wonder if the FOV goggles are any good. The field of view goggles are better than the FPV ones. Female hygiene products. Mads merch. How does it fit in the goggles? Just onto the strap. It does. So, just to show you it. So, it goes onto the strap at the back. So, just to take this one off and put this one on. So, what you get is it goes on this part of the strap. Yeah, let's just come out a little bit. So it goes on this part of the strap here. If you look widthwise, it's just a bit narrower. So, to fit it on, you simply open it up like that. And open that up so it falls in. And that's it on. So the idea then is when that's against your head, it's closed in. It physically can't pull out by itself. And you then simply, ignoring this one, goes on the back of the head. And it just holds it, the battery on the back. Just like that. That simples. Oh, have I made a typo in the title? Oh, it's FOV, bugger. Edit thing. Stupid FPV. Save. There you go. Changed. So I did that this afternoon. So that's all done and dusted. So yeah, that's and it is to address the complaint on the other one where it just kept falling off. So that now won't fall off. It is a little bit tight to get the battery in. First ostrich view. You know, it's bugger. And now I've done it upside down. Is it changed it now? Is it edit thing? Is my Does it take time to change? Yeah. It must take time to change. I could see worst case I'll end up having to take it off and put it back up. Because it still says FOV view. Thing name required. It must take some time. Will we need TPU for the FETX shower absorber? No. There we go. Just gonna push him in. You could probably, if you wanted to, increase the size 1%. Depends how tight you want it. You've got to take into account because this TPU is quite grippy. So there we go. It's a tad. There we go. There we go. Sorted. All in. All done and dusted. Ready to rock and roll. Yeah, to be honest, it probably would want a little bit, just if you just put a little bit of water on as you're pushing it in, it'll slide in just right. The TPU is just a little bit grippy. It depends how you calibrate your printer too. Yeah, it's tight. I wouldn't really want it much looser. What you have to take into account is the battery cover is grippy. You're in for a good time. Slather it with lard. Slather it with lard. Yes. Okay, guys. Right. So, that for the most part, I'm going to leave these charging over here. Now that I've put the battery in, I won't get it out. That is, for the most part, it. If there's any questions, does someone just take apart? It'll be very hard, Michael, to take the DJI apart and put it in another frame. It's like trying to take a modern car apart and mount it into a timber frame. You're just not going to do it. The DJI drone is so integrated, it makes no sense tearing it apart, but it just makes no sense to do it. You may as well just bin it. I am that close to selling my DJI FPV drone. I'll be honest, it's pointless to me right now, other than the need to continue it. Okay, what's holding me back from selling it is having the set of V2 goggles. I'll be honest, because I like having both sets. For me, I wouldn't want to sell the drone on its own, but I don't want to lose the V2 goggles, and it just makes no sense to sell it without the V2. It's close to pointless for me now. It really is close to pointless. It's a good product. I'm not saying it's a bad product. I still think it is a good product to learn with, but I still think you'll grow out of it very, very quickly. And, you know, I'm a lot more. Let me just move this. I'm a lot more pro right to repair now, and I've been, there was a period where I understand that if you buy a heavily integrated product, that there are going to be limitations on how you can repair it. Okay, so I get that, and I understand the difficulties. However, the reality with this product is DJI do not make parts readily available in a product that they know is going to be crashed. I get it with a Mavic, right? You can't easily crash a Mavic or a Mini, whatever they call them these days. You can, but they're not FPV style quads. So the chances are, if you do crash one, you've had to have done something really dull. And I sort of get why DJI don't sell parts on them. But the problem is, on the FPV drone, they know it's going to be smashed. It's been made in such a way that it is repairable. There are elements to the way it's been put together. The arms, the board locations, the fact the top cover comes off. They give you a second cover for it. They intend for you to take it apart, yet they won't sell you parts. And I just think it's at the stage where we can't support that. Now, it's not good enough. I would be happier if they had parts. So if I could go on DJI's website and buy every part of it as a module, because they have made the drone really modular, but the only part you can buy is the camera. No, it doesn't, Steve. Different voltage range. Hot Cooler, I kind of have my FPV drone as a Mavic replacement, but I use my Mavic rather unconventionally. It's large, stable rope transport, and it flies from one roost to another. Yeah, the problem with using the FPV drone as a Mavic replacement for camera drone operators is the camera is shite on the FPV drone. It is useless, completely unexpectedly useless. And I've said it from the start, and I will say it again. It is a letdown. It is a letdown. It was a letdown to me. It is worse than their $250 Mavic Mini. And that's just not acceptable from a company that makes camera drones. I expected the image quality to be on par with the Mavic Air 2. That's what I expected. And it isn't. And it's unacceptable. Even the Mini 2. There's no reason, but it isn't. In many ways, it's worse than a Mavic Pro from, 3.5, 4 years ago? So, whilst the product has some benefits, it's a jack of all trades, a master of none. It flies okay. It's bloody quick. There's no question it's a fast bit of kit. In acro mode, it's bloody quick. It's got a cracking live feed, as has just been mentioned by Hot Cooler. It does have the benefits of the smart battery and stuff like that. But it lets me down in the one area I wanted it to succeed, which was the image quality in the recording. Because it's simply not good enough to not need a GoPro. Yeah, there you go. And Bruce says, and that's why people are strapping GoPros to it. Because you don't see people strapping GoPros to Mavics at all. Yet they're having to do it on the FPV drone. So that tells you what they got wrong. And I probably am going to do a 6 months later on this product, talking about this. I'll do it as a proper video, in fact, because it does warrant it. And it's the same criticisms I leveled at it from day one. Which was that I think it has some benefits, it has some downsides, but frankly, I don't think it's worth it when you can buy and build this, which is almost as good. I've got GPS. I've got return to home. Well, Betaflight return to home if you've ever used it. GPS rescue. But we could have iNav on this, so it could have return to home. I just don't see the benefit. I just don't see it. If they sold parts, I might feel differently. But, yeah. I'll do the 6 months later and 3 flights later and 6 months later. I like that, Bruce. I'm not... I've flown it a bit, but not dramatically. Michael Tex, thank you, mate. You know, it's the first product. It's the first drone I can remember from DJI I'm disappointed in. Hand on heart. I was disappointed. The day I bought it and looked at the image quality, I put the card in the computer, hit play and went, what have I done wrong? Really? Look at the noise. Look at the noise in the darks. Oh my God, look at the moire. It is, you know, if you go back, look, I've had most of DJI's camera drones, and I'm going to wrap this up quickly because it's gone midnight and I got work tomorrow. But most of the DJI camera drones I've owned. I've owned almost all of them, and I've never been disappointed with one, apart from this. This is the first one where I was like, this just isn't backwards. This is backwards. Parts just one side. Other things, battery price. Yeah, but okay, I accept the battery price because you're entering a ready-to-fly ecosystem. I get that. I've always got that. I don't like it, but I accepted that the day I bought it. Can they just upgrade the camera? I think they have, on the processing side, gimped the drone heavily, and that's why the image quality is so crap. The camera will be all right. It'll be the processing. It's the SD recording. That's where it will be. It won't be so much the camera. I suspect it's the onboard recording. They've gimped it for the live feed rather than the onboard recording. Yeah, it's a good product. It's not, you know, look, don't get me wrong. I think it still fits an interesting mark. But I just think the camera should have been better. I really would be tempted. Look, I wouldn't sell it because I do fly it. I flew it today, so I do fly it. It still surprised me how damn quick it is. Being 10 bucks in a session like FPV flyers do. You'd be surprised, Bruce, how some of my flyers do. And we are starting to see packs going 100 cycles. I don't know if you guys have seen this. We've started to see packs start to say pack has reached end of its life at about 110 cycles. So that is now becoming a thing. I did mention that in my early review. You're paying like £1 a flight. You're paying like $1.50 a flight on that product. But that's the price of integrated and everything. Okay, guys. I'm going to wrap this one up here. I'd like to thank you for spending some time with me tonight talking about these things. As always, if you found it interesting, please do consider hitting the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the little bell next to it as well. Bruce, I look forward to talking to you in lockdown in the middle of the week. The first time last week, and it's great. It goes like hell. There's no question about it. Thank you, Michael. Thank you to everyone who's been here. Please stay safe, and I will speak to you guys all again soon. Now I got to go and find the button. Take it easy. Goodbye.